So in October 2014, Sean and I had been together for a bit over a year. It was October school holidays. We'd planned to do a trip. Sean was keen to do Esperance, and so was I, because the beaches are sort of similar to Tassie. I headed out with him at the same time to Wiley Bay. So it's like a four-wheel drive sort of truck, and then you go along the beach, and it's like renowned for good waves and that sort of thing. There was no signs up because there was so much controversy afterwards about that there were signs up saying warning sharks, and there were no signs up because when they get put up, people will come along and pull them out. Yeah, but there were a lot of locals out as well, and they would have known, like, you know, that there were sharks in the area. I was out on a board with Sean because I had been surfing just here and there, like really basic surfing, and so I was keen to get just good enough to sort of go out and do a few when the waves aren't as big with him. And then the only reason I went in was because I started feeling sick, I think. I went in, and then I actually think I need to go to the loo. So I think I was I went to the loo in the sand dunes. This is part of the story. People that know me well, like from uni, would find that funny because, that is why I had to go in, because I actually needed to go to the loo, so I had to go into the sand dunes. When I came back out of the sand dunes and was sitting on the sand, I remember thinking I won't go back in because I just had to pull off everything that I had on. And I remember ringing Dad, and there was a massive whale in front of us, breaching. And I remember saying to him, oh, there's a huge whale in front of us, you know. Dad was back in Tassie, and Dad was like, oh, is there? And he's like, as long as there's, like, you know, nothing else following it around or something, you know, just a comment like that. Anyway, I hung up from him, and then I laid down, and then probably like a couple minutes later, I sort of sat back up to check where, like, Sean was, and I could see his head and the board, but something like wasn't quite right. But then I thought he must be pushing the board. He must be coming in for some reason. And then when I looked up again, then I couldn't see him. So I must have looked and put my head up in between him being pulled under, because that's when I looked up, I couldn't see his head. So I was thinking I don't think something's right. But at the same time, I was like, he does duck dive under to pull the board and come in sometimes. So then I was sort of watching, and then I sort of realised he was coming back in, like floating on his back. And I don't think the board was there anymore, I think. And he had caught a wave, and then, by then, I didn't register that it was blood in the water because it goes brown in the water sometimes. And then by then, some other people that were surfing, I think the direction of the wind, his noises had drifted along to them more so than into me at the beach. And so they'd come along, and that's Kylie and Peter Rothney. And she was a volunteer ambulance officer. So she helped do the tourniquets on both of his arms. And then they wanted something to put him on, so I ran to get, because we had my board in the back of his car, so we grabbed that out and pulled him up onto the board. And then another local, Ross, rang the ambulance, and then we put Sean in the back of his car. And it was quite a long, like, bumpy drive along the beach, because obviously it was a full drive, like, spot. And then the ambulance met us at the no-through, like the turning circle where we'd come in, sort of thing. You could just hear, like, the radios and stuff going off, and you could hear, like, sirens and stuff starting up. And then they transferred him into the ambulance and took him to the local hospital. And then we drove back into Esperance, and he had to be taken to the Esperance hospital because of the blood loss. You can't fly someone immediately with, like, flying doctors or something because of the pressure and the blood loss, so it has to be stabilised. So we were there for, like, a few hours, I think. And Sean was, like, in and out of consciousness. He was conscious, but, like, a lot of the thing, because they'd be putting things through on the drip. I think they did 7 blood transfusions, maybe 7 or 8, which is a lot, I think. The local police and stuff were, like, really good. We went and collected our stuff from the apartment. They organised me on a flight to go back up, and then I met him in Perth, or at the hospital. My name is Claire Pollard. In 2022, I was first diagnosed with HER2 grade 3 triple positive breast cancer. I'm originally from Tasmania, so I come from Richmond, which is just out of Hobart. Mum and Dad still live at that property. I've got a sister, Emma, who's still in Tasmania with 2 little girls. If it wasn't so cold, being away from Emma and Mum, definitely with kids as well, like I'd much prefer to be closer to them. But then Sean and I love the beach and we can be there in 2 minutes. And it's so much warmer here. So in Launceston, that's where I did uni. I really enjoy working with people. There's so many different aspects of teaching that I enjoy. Yeah, classroom management, working with special needs, working with a parent group. I moved over here 2008 to teach. I moved to Beverley, part of the Wheatbelt area. I did a stint in Northern Territory, and that was like a remote Aboriginal community. And then went from there to Sydney for 6 months and lived in Bondi. I had work at 2 really different schools, one at Redham House, which was an exclusive private school, and then the other one, it was in Redfern, and so it was behaviour school for kids that had been expelled from their regular school and had diagnosed behavioural problems. And then the third school I was in was also high school, and it was a behaviour school for kids with emotional needs. So it wasn't the same as the Redfern school. It was kids that had behaviours because of the emotional problems that they were having. So I took a job in Geraldton at Meekatharra School of the Air. And then once I'd finished there, I moved back towards Bunbury because my sister and Teza, that's her husband now, were here at the time. And it was during that time he played footy at South Bunbury Footy Club, and so did Sean. So I went to a couple of events, like on the weekends. Yeah, it was like presentation night or something like that. And we were all there, and Sean was there. I remember, because a lot of the footy guys sort of look sort of similar. And then this guy walked through the room, and I was like, he sort of looks like surfy, but like a footy. And I asked Emma who he was, and she was like, oh, I can't believe I didn't think of Polly. That's what they call him. Yeah, I'll introduce you. So Emma introduced me to him, and I got talking to him. I think he had a girlfriend at that time, but he was young. He would have been 22 maybe. Yeah, I was a few years older than him. And I didn't see him for a few months, so I thought nothing would come of it. And then I kept running into him at places, and then obviously he wasn't with the girlfriend, and so we went from there. I had Milo when I was 37, so she was 18 months when I was diagnosed. So the other day I had a echo heart scan, which is routine every 2 to 3 months. I have one, and so she actually came with me. In the past, I would have organised someone to look after her, and so she came in and she was really interested in the equipment, and the cardiologist was really good with her, and she does regularly ask things like, how they always take notice of body parts and stuff at that age. She sees I've got quite really large scarring across my chest and everything. She'll say, oh, Mama doesn't have any boobies. And so it's sort of just no, they're getting fixed soon. So, So obviously there's things we don't tell her. I think because I'm fairly open about stuff, and I think that just from being a teacher working with kids, I think, being secretive about things probably doesn't really have that many benefits. So I just sort of said, Mum's going to have to start having medication, and it might make my hair fall out. And there were days where I'd be in bed sick, and she'd sort of say, are you sick today? And I'd say, yep, I'm feeling really sick, And it's not it was a bit of a challenge, because it's sort of it felt like I was saying that all the time, especially in the first few months when I was having the they call it red devil, the one that makes your hair fall out. Both of us talk to her a lot about things, and I love chatting to people, and I think she picks up on a lot of when something happens to her, she'll go, oh, I've got a scratch, but it's just a little one, it's fine, it'll get better or something, She started asking more questions about Sean's arms as well, which at her age it's going to happen, because before she'll just sort of say, oh, Dad has got a hook. But I guess now her brain's thinking like, well, how come he's got a hook and, this arm. She's just started asking more questions about that. She would say things before, but now she's sort of, it's almost like because she's a little bit older, she's got more empathy, I guess. She's sort of saying, she'll say, it doesn't hurt though. And I say, no, it doesn't hurt. Like I feel like when she sees people in wheelchairs or people without legs or all different sorts of people, I feel like because she's been around lots of unique situations, she'll say, he's in that. It's like, yep, that's the wheelchair to help him walk. Because lots of people need help with different things, and she'll go, yeah, that's right. I feel like she sort of gets that everyone's different or does things in different ways. And because sometimes I find she's using her feet to pick up things and try and like put them on her plate and stuff like that. That's because Sean uses his feet to do a lot of things. So she's actually picked up like lots of little like behaviours or habits like from him. Yeah, I think it is probably making her resilient as well. Because she'll often say at the moment, like if she hears someone crying, she'll say, but them crying, something might have happened. When Mila was about 15 months, she was still waking once a night. She would never drink from this side. And then even in the hospital when she was born, I had probably 5 nurses come in and say, has your nipple always been like that? And I said, yeah, I think it's just, I can't remember. Pretty sure it's been like this forever. But looking back now in hindsight, that's like a number 1 symptom of breast cancer. So I've just been to our GP, who's awesome, down at Brecon Health Centre. And on the way out the door, I said to her, I have noticed a lump on this side. And I said, it's probably just like a build-up in the duct. And she said, I'm not actually even going to examine it. I'm just going to refer you straight away for an ultrasound. But when I went to have it done, people kept coming into the room and saying, it looks... Well, they weren't really saying much, so I knew straight away. I was like, and they kept going out and asking the... Helena, I think her name is, at SKG, to come and have a look because it had a unique shape and that sort of thing. It was quite large, and they kept asking, how long have you felt it for? And, when you just sort of get the gist of questions. And then she came in and said, I think we'll do a biopsy because it doesn't really look normal. Well, I went back in for the biopsy. I think I have a pretty good pain threshold. But the reason that it was so painful was because, they're obviously sticking a really thick needle with a gap down the middle, so it's a hollow needle, into something that was really angry, like because I didn't realise, obviously, what it was at the time. But, I think if it had been non-cancerous, maybe it wouldn't have been so painful. They always say, it's up to you, but would you like to look at what we extracted? So I'd recommend no, but I always do. So I did, and I don't know if it was that, but just the pain and everything. And I pretty much was passed out and had to stay there for maybe like a couple of hours to recover in the recovery room. So I was bruised for 10 weeks, the whole entire breast. And everyone that looked at it, all the different medical people I then saw, just said they hadn't really seen one bruise so much. They think probably with the size of the tumour and that it was... straight into it. And then Monday morning I got a text message to say, could you make an urgent appointment within 24 hours or something? But it was a different doctor as well, so I sort of felt sorry for her because she didn't know me, and she said, I feel really bad having to give you this news, but the biopsy has come back and it's grade 3, HER2 triple positive. So she said, you'll need to speak to Marcus Ong, he's the surgeon in Bunbury. And so I went to see him and he read it and said, like his reaction was sort of like, we need to act on this like right now. So we chose to go up to Perth. We went to Murdoch Hospital. And the staff there were amazing because they specialise in that sort of thing. So they did a MRI on the chest. The MRI showed that my lymph glands were clear. So at that stage, they were saying it was stage 2, HER2/3 positive. I got an oncologist appointment like that day. They asked, do you have children? I said, yes, I have Mila. We're planning on having another one. And they said, well, our professional opinion is that you need to start chemo ASAP. And the thing was that I just the week before found out that I was 6 weeks pregnant and had heaps of morning sickness which I had with Mila, which showed me it was quite a strong pregnancy. So yeah, we'd had another, just before I was diagnosed, we had another miscarriage in the April, but I had no morning sickness. So for me, I think if I get morning sickness, just knowing my own body, that's like a strong pregnancy. I had to sort of say to them, well, what do you think? Like, what should I do? I was told by one doctor in Bunbury that there's people at King Edward that specialise in early pregnancy and chemo. But the other medical staff I spoke to said there's so much chance that an early pregnancy would not survive the strong chemo. So legally they can't apply chemo to your body until it's declared that you're not pregnant. And so that was actually probably one of the most bit more traumatic things. So I went in at I was in there by 10 a.m. I think my procedure was done at 8 p.m. So it was such a long wait through the day. And just listening, people around you, with obviously medical issues and stuff like that. I was also awaiting my MRI results, my mammogram results. So they didn't know how far it had spread. And plus I was just about to go in and have basically a medical termination. So you had to have that done. So that was probably one of the lowest points in that part of the cancer journey, I guess. So yeah, got home that night, late that night, and yeah, that was definitely not a nice feeling. But yeah, it was something that we had to do. So I think Sean's shark attack in 2014 and how we coped with that and how I coped with that has had an impact on our ability to cope with several other hurdles and obstacles. So I do feel like it has helped, sort of like a roles reverse sort of thing. Now Sean has felt so many times helpless. He said he can't stand that feeling, he feels helpless because it's he can't do anything. This is just how it is. Struggling to know, what can he do to sort of help. So it took us a few months after I was diagnosed to get into a comfortable routine, because often I would get annoyed because I'd be like, well, I want to make Mila's breakfast, I just want to do some normal things. And he would sort of be hovering around saying, oh, well, I was going to do, and I'm like, yeah, just because I'm so independent,